for the Indian Navy. And then we have DMR also, Defense Material Research Laboratory, Hyderabad. The what you call the titanium alloy, and then the lightweight material, the material which goes into the aircraft engine, all those things we do develop here. And then the DL Jodhpur Defense Laboratory, Jodhpur, it is near to Pokhran site, so a lot of trials we carry out, the strategic and secret trials we carry out. And then the DMR study Kanpur, Defense Material Stores Research Development established Kanpur. This is the first lab in the DRDO, so lot of what you call the textile related research happens. So this is the naval systems cluster. And then we have aeronautical clusters, GTRE, Gas Turbine Research Establishment. Famous is the Kaveri engine. If you read the newspaper, lot of criticisms used to come about the Kaveri engine, but India, I tell you, being the developing country, achieving the aircraft engine is not an easy joke. Because even the countries like France or other countries, we are not that much self-sufficient in these things, because your turbine or the gas, these things, it should reach around 5,000, 6,000 plus temperature it should withstand. We don't have that kind of material science capability. So that's why still we are depending upon the countries like GE, General Motors and other engines. But of course, we now locally we are developing, and then ADE, Aeronautical Development Establishment, we do lot of unmanned aerial vehicles here. And then ADRD, it is in Agra, we do lot of parachutes and other these things, CAPS, what you call system for airborne these things. All your what you call advanced warfare systems here, AVAX programs develop here, it is located in Bangalore. Then we have armaments, this VRD, R&D engineers, the bridges. What are the bridges we develop here, Sarvatra, all those things. SASEB, that is Manali, this is, PXC is the launch center, the Abdul Kalam Wheeler Island is here. So all the missiles launch will happen, and then ARD, we develop lot of what you call ammunitions and these things. CVRD, Combat Air Vehicle Research Establishment for the MBT Mark 1, Mark 2 heavy tanks, and then HEMRL, and this is a CPs. Then missiles, because the DRDL, Dr. Abdul Kalam started his career from DRDL. Basically, Dr. Abdul Kalam came from ISRO. Then again he joined in ADE, and then he moved to ISRO, and then again he rejoined in DRDL. So this is a Defense Research Development Establishment where Prithvi, Alkas, all this thing, RCS Research Center, Emirat. This lab is exclusively developed by Dr. Kalam when he was the scientific advisor to government. So the Agni series of missiles, everything we develop here. Then again ITR, integrated test range, PXC and ITR co-located. TBRL is even we have one lab in Mysore, TBRL branch here. So all the warhead assembly takes place here. And then ASL, Advanced System Laboratory, again it is Hyderabad, it is for the missile like Astra and all those things we develop here. And then SES, this is the high energy laser guided material research we develop here. It is a secret lab. I cannot tell more details about that. And then electronics and these things, it is all electronic warfare, everything it comes. LRD is a Bangalore lab. And then life science, we have 9 life labs. So DFL we come under the life science category. And then MED, that is the microelectronic device and computer science. So Anurag, CARE, all those things, artificial intelligence, system analysis group, then JCB, Joint Cyber Bureau, that is for the secret operations. So this is about the DRDO structure happens. Yeah, if you see this country map, throughout the places we are located, starting from Kanpur, Delhi, but most of the time if you see this map, the DRDO labs are mostly concentrated in Bangalore, Hyderabad and Pune. Due to certain reasons, due to certain security reasons, because these labs are focused. And in Mysore also we have 4 laboratories. So in the map we put only DFRL, even the KRS road opposite to Hebbal we have a DRDO lab. And then near Srirangapatna we have one more DRDO lab. And then near one more lab is there opposite to Infosys campus also. But they although do the strategic operations, they do lot of these things which may not be able to tell the details. So when come to the DFRL, we are started in the year 1961. Then earlier it started in Delhi, then it came to, the scope is to develop research in the field of food science technology. All of us aware that India, during the Chinese aggression, we couldn't able to succeed very well what we planned, but due to the logistic problem, particularly the food requirements, we are unable to take care. So that these things, the lab was started here. We have the DFL vision, mission, everything. So now each lab, DRDO lab has given the charter of duties that are all not these things. So we do research in these areas like food engineering, packaging, grains and technology, fruits and vegetables, freeze drying and animal products, food microbiology, food biotechnology and nutritional biochemistry. This is the verticals of our lab research. So when we talk about the research, how DRDO or each lab takes research is, we take the concepts, basic and applied research. Most of us, we don't do any basic research because the basic research now it is uploaded to academic institutes like IITs or the central universities or any engineering colleges. We upload the basic researches and then we only develop the technology or process based on the applied research, and then we develop the what you call process and product we develop, and then we develop these what you call rations, armed forces rations, we develop various rations, and then we do the quality control both in the terms of sensory, nutritional, microbiology, all those controls, and then we go for the field trials. One of the difference between some of the what you call the conventional universities or the conventional institutes like CFTR and other things, they are called the lab scientist, but we call ourselves as a field scientist. We go to the field, whether it is a submarine or whether it is a high altitude or whether it is a desert or it is a northeastern or it is in the other jungle places. We go to the field, we conduct the trials, and then we take the feedback, and then again we improve these products or technologies, and then we introduce the rations. So we basically, we are the field people. We don't sit in the lab and do some kind of research and publish paper and get the things. The facilities, processing facility, when compared to the steam and retort, all other facilities, we have analytical facilities. If you talk about the facilities, morning I was discussing with your people that we have all the facilities, Raman spectroscopy, atomic force microscope, scanning electron microscope, and then we have the different, what you call, even in the basic science, we have the next generation sequence system. Suppose you want to see the DNA structure of each organisms, we have these kind of facilities. So coming to the food production, when we are talking about the population, this population is going to increase by 2025. The population of the world is going to increase by 8 billion. So you need to increase the what you call the production of the food products. But only problem is there is a lot of wastage is happening in the food production. So if you see here, according to the Food Corporation India, the losses is around 10 to 12%. If the losses alone you can able to convert into a good product, countries like Australia and New Zealand, you can able to feed these things. So that's why the wastage is very, very high. And then when you are talking about the sustainability in the food production, you have to take care of the social, economical and healthy well-being of this population. So this we talk about the sustainable development goals. If you studied the UN sustainable development goal, you can see the economic pillar, environmental pillar and social pillar. So we talk about the providing the zero hunger. This is the concept we talk about these things. So historically, how the food technology started. So first man started using the fire for preparing the food, or what you call processing, we call it as, and then use of salt, and then use of pressure cooker started in 1679, if you can see, and then pasteurization, all of us aware that canning and these things, and then fast foods, food irradiation started in 1968, GMO food 1994, worldwide started, but still India, it is not these things, and then like use of pulsed electric field, everything now came into these things, how the food processing is these things. So here you can see first artificial cold processing started in 1970, these things, Nicholas Appert, all those things. So these are the emerging areas of the food processing coming. So in India, there is a scope for the food processing because we grow different crops. So if you see these things, last 2-3 years, the Indian food production is increasing, and particularly field like we are number one in the production of the milk, what you call the fruits and vegetables, and India ranks in the number 2 in the production of the rice, wheat, and other dry commodities also. So India is ranked in the 5th in the terms of production, consumption, and export of processed foods. Now the production also increasing. So the major area of the food production is happening in these kind of fruits, vegetables, marine products, meat and poultry, and other products. So the benefits, farmer will get a good deal, companies, these new industries will get new business opportunities, consumers, and then economy and environment takes place. So this is the the data how the Indian food processing industry is happening here. And then the advantage for India, because government of India is also giving lot of benefits to the what you call the startups and other things. So when this is about the general food processing and the country. Then I will now speak about the how the DRDO or the DFRL, why the food research is very, very critical in India, or the how this security scenario is different here. If you see this Indian map, we are surrounded by different kind of neighbors. One thing, you cannot change the neighbor. So you have to take care of these things, starting from Sri Lanka, and then you have covered with Myanmar, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, of course China, and then Pakistan. Even now we are starting having with the problem with the countries like Afghanistan, and then the Arabian Sea. The Arabian Sea, so far it is not that much critical, but now here due to some reasons, now this Arabian Sea also now becoming, it is a porous. The Indian border is very, very porous. So unless you take care of your border things, so here you see LOC, line of control, and then LAC, line of actual control. So I don't want to tell more details, because how you can see these things, we are surrounded by the situations. So when we talk about the any development of food technology or the food processing, the Indian country, it is surrounded with different environmental climatic conditions, hot and dry. Hot condition, it goes up to plus 55 degrees Celsius. And then the temperature during the off season, that is what called winter, it goes to minus 60. Siachen base, and then Ladakh, all those places. And then you have the hot, humid coastal regions. If you go to places like Visakhapatnam or Bombay or Chennai or Kochi, and then you have the high humid altitude, like Tawang or Leh or this thing, Kartungla, all those things. And then snowbound areas, and then space environments. So how the diversified this thing. So that's why your human diet differed in the different these things. So here when you talk about the extreme environment, you have the different these things, hypoxia, vomiting, and other related physiological these things. And then you have decreased fluid availability, and then dehydration, like hypothermia, all those things. Then negative imbalance, these things. So that's why the human performance or the work performance in these extreme environmental conditions are very, very critical. So when we develop any these are the some of the microgravity also. Now the government is also working on the developing various technologies for the microgravity environment also. So here you can see how it is happening, space motion sickness. Now India, we don't have the International Space Station or the permanent space station, but in future there will be a space station where exclusively India will going to operate that space station. So you have to take care of these kind of environments also. So why the human nutrition and the environment plays an important role? The availability of food in that particular area, and then selection of each class of food are these things, because Indian troops or the Jawans or the soldiers whom we are calling, they are coming from different ethnic background, different socio-cultural background. We cannot completely provide the food which is highly processed or highly fast food kind of things. So we need to take care of their, what you call the cultural requirements also. Suppose if he wants a chapati or he wants a chawal, so you need to provide what he wants. That is called regimental based requirements. So whenever we are developing any ration, I talk about the operational ration. Basically we are ration people. It should provide high energy. We call it high energy, low volume, and light weight, and then high fiber, and then optimum vitamins like your water soluble, fat soluble vitamins, and trace minerals like selenium, magnesium, calcium. And then it should not induce the thirst also. Even when he is operating in the desert condition, there should not be any thirst. And then palatable and digestible. The food which is we are providing to the Jawan, it should be palatable. And then it should be easily digestible because of the different physiological reasons, and longer shelf life. For example, chapati, what I develop at DFRL, it will have a shelf life of 1 year under room temperature. And any technology, any product which we develop at DFRL or these things for the armed forces, we don't add any chemical preservatives, we don't keep in the low temperature. All the food products or all the rations, we keep in the what you call the normal storage condition, which will have a shelf life of 1 year and above. But now we are working on these technologies or the systems where even your food products can be stored from minimum 24 months because of the supply chain management issues. Because suppose you are transporting this material from Chandigarh to Leh, around 8 to 9 months there will be a vertical road cut off that we call as the advanced winter stocking. Now it is already started. If you go to Leh and all those things, the temperature is around minus 20 like that. So it should have a longer shelf life. The atta or the maida, what you are, or wheat, what you are using at this thing, maximum 90 days shelf life. But what atta we are giving to the army, it should have a 6 to 9 months shelf life. So you can imagine a difference with appreciate what is entirely different from the defense food requirements and the packaging requirements also. And then easy storage already, and then easy portability and carrying. Already the Jawan, when he is going for any operation, he will be carrying around 28 to 30 kg of his arms ammunition along with him, and communication set, all those things. But when he is going for any long range patrol operation or the short range patrol operation, he need to carry these kind of food items also. So it should be lightweight, it should be easily carryable also. So these are the characteristics when we develop the food products. So basically when we talk about these things, the science people, they will appreciate around 60 to 70% of the energy should come from carbohydrate, around 30% should come from the fat, because fat is also provides the energy, and these things, around 10 to 12% comes from the protein. Because protein, fat, everything it's required of these things. And this is what the physiological problems are in the high altitude. And here I told you logistic problems, the difficult terrain and expensive air transport. For example, suppose I'm telling, if you want to transport 1 kg of tomato from Chandigarh to Leh, the government spends around 120 rupees per kg of tomato. The tomato which is available for 5 rupees in Chandigarh market, when we are transporting from Chandigarh to Leh by IL-76 aircraft, we are spending around 120 rupees for the transport alone. Then you can appreciate what is the problem, because the road you cannot transport during the winter road cutoff. There are a lot of technology challenges there in the supply chain management, and then lack of conventional power provision in the forward locations. If you go to any LAC or LOC post, we call this a pickets, there will not be any power, or even the generator. People used to use the kerosene and other materials to get a power this thing. So when that's what we cannot afford to keep these food products in the low temperature conditions. So whenever you are developing any product, it should withstand the store in the low temperature, sorry, the room temperature conditions only. And then adverse climate affecting. Suppose we are transporting these materials, fruits and vegetables. Suppose the IL-76 aircraft, if it is not able to land in the Leh or Kalsar or other places because of the bad weather conditions, you know, anytime the weather will change. So the aircraft has to return back again to Chandigarh. So you can imagine how the weather conditions plays important role in the supply chain management. And then that's what I was talking about, the advanced winter stock, AWS, and then huge requirements of petroleum products in the forward areas, because they have to take care of communication, everything, and then freezing of foods at sub-zero conditions. This I think you might have aware. When you are transporting these materials to sub-zero conditions or the cold conditions, your apple, orange, or even egg, it becomes ice, frozen. So the Jawan or the soldier cannot able to use these fruits or vegetables. So that now we are developing a system where when you are storing in some kind of storage container, the temperature will be maintained around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, the warm conditions. So these products will not become frozen. So there again the challenge is there, freezing of foods at sub-zero conditions also there. So then come to food processing technology, we have thermal, already conventional we have, and then we have the non-thermal irradiation, use of high pressure processing, pulsed light, oscillating magnetic field, all those things are there. So, but whatever we are discussing here, basically it is all the removal of the moisture or taking care of the control of your water activity. That is the major critical things. When we are talking about the thermal processing, you have the advantages of what you the food will be free from microbial spoilage, and then you can increase the shelf life and it can improve the digestibility. But if you are using the thermal processing technologies, the nutraceutical values, nutritional values, quality, everything get affected. That's why we go for the non-thermal processing technology. Non-thermal means you are not employing the heat or the temperature directly on the food products. So like that, the advantages are there. You can get the extended shelf life, and then you can get the fresh like products. Because now the consumers, particularly the elite consumers, they prefer the natural food products, near to natural. So that kind of things you can achieve by using these kind of non-thermal processing conditions. The only thing is that you have to optimize to get this retention of flavor, texture, color, neutral quality. So one is the irradiation. Irradiation, you are aware that it is a gamma irradiation or the electron beam, this thing. Basically the source is copal 60. It is called cold pasteurization also. There is no, what you call these things. Now government of India also permitted for use of this gamma irradiation for preservation of foods, particularly for the onion, potato, sprout inhibition, and then spices. What spices you are using in the market, whether it is a MTR brand or any brand of the spices, already it is all irradiated, it is coming. So, and then the residual irradiation level are very, very safe, because no need to panic all those things. So the mechanism all, it, what you call, get damaged your cells, the DNA gets damaged, and then the, what you call, the cell death happens here. Then we have the high pressure processing. High pressure processing is nothing but employing a pressure around 600 megapascal to 1000 megapascal. This system we have at DFL. Both all the facilities what I am talking, we have the facilities. So the cells or these things will be inactivated by high pressure processing. We have the facility. This is the mechanism. The inactivation, swelling, disintegration, transition, unfolding happens. So 250, 600 and this thing. So, but the only challenges here is you need to provide the suitable packaging materials and other things. Then we have the freezing. The freezing is nothing but the lyophilization. You might have seen the freeze dryer or other things. So the low temperature, the material is directly what you call dried by the sublimation process. That is the triple point of the water will be achieved, and then you can get these things. You can get a good quality materials. So this is the freeze drying. So but only thing that you have to run this plant for 16 to 18 hours directly, then a lot of power and the investment cost happens here. Otherwise this is the best technology available so here. And then these are the some of the products what we developed at DFRL, this and all. And then ultrasonics, the use of sound in the food processing also, like in the medical field, food processing also, ultrasonic is used for these things. Basically it is a what you call the vibration happens, and then cavitation happens, then the cell death happens. This is the ultrasound of these things. Again it is a batch operation. So these are the some of the applications where the ultrasonics are adopted. And then pulse electric field, the use of electricity or the current around 25 to what you call 10 to 80 kilowatts per centimeter, you can these things. And the food products are what you call pumped through this what you call this electrodes. It is a electrode, and then products will be pumped through the electrode, and then because of the electrical discharge these things, the food will be get this thing, but only it is for the applicable for the liquid products. So this is the pulse electric field. It is coming into different fields actually, and this is the how the electrical properties. Each cell is having the electric property, the cell membrane, the cell interior, and then we have the lipid bilayer. And then when this cell what you call has the transmembrane potential exceeds, then you will have this kind of. This is how the microbial inactivation happens to the by PEF. So in India, DFL Mysore, we are the first in using this, what you call this PEF technology. So by using this PEF technology, it is an imported system because in India still we are unable to fabricate. There are a lot of technical constraints are there. So we have established these kind of products by using this PEF technology. Then we are talking about the mechanization also, because now the availability of the labor in the food processing sector is also challenging. So we are looking for the mechanization. So the mechanization or the automation will be possible to achieve quality control. You can get a good quality in these things, improved safety and end-to-end traceability. For example, in India, the food safety or the food traceability still it is not established. Whereas in automobile sector, suppose you have the problem with your engine, a Maruti engine or the Toyota engine, the manufacturer can recollect or take back your car engine. But in food products, it is not there. Whereas in the countries like US or the European countries, you can take back the tomato which is sold in the market if it is affected with the salmonella or other what you call pathogenic microorganisms. So the traceability is very, very critical, and then the brand protection also you can achieve by going for the automations. So even the robots in the use of food processing is also now coming, but it is also, it will take some time. Maybe the startup people can think about how the these kind of things can used here. And then we are talking about the biosensor and other things that and all these things. And then apart from these conventional things, now we are talking about the use of insects in the food. Countries like other countries, even insects now they are growing and consuming, and then cultured meat. It is called lab grown meat, because most of us, if you are a vegetarian, you don't want to drink even the milk from animal sources. That is concept is calling, that is called vegan milk. Because people are, because, see, there are two things. One is the affordability, the other thing, suppose you people are having some kind of lactose intolerance. The child who is born may not be having that lactase enzyme in his system. So whatever the milk is you are giving, feeding, that child may not be able to digest the lactose. The lactose has to convert into glucose and other sugars, then only the energy will be developed. So if the child is not having the lactase enzyme in the system, then that will be a problem. So instead of that, you feed the child with the milk which is taken from the vegetable sources, like sesame seed or other vegetable source milk. So that now the vegan products are coming to the market like anything. And then plant-based meat, the alternative to the animal meats, because now consuming non-vegetarian itself is like a taboo. It is coming in the world. Consuming the non-vegetarian itself is coming as a taboo. I don't know some reasons. So, and then single cell proteins, like use of algae, all those things, and then milk substitutes. It is coming from the coconut and other these things, and the marine algae, use of marine algae in the food processing, because it gives lot of phytochemicals and other materials. So you can go for these things. And then 3D printing, 4D printing, you can design, custom design your food products. Suppose you want to design your bakery products, you can, what you call, deliver with a designed nutrients. I need this much calorie, I need this much protein, I need this much fat. Then you can deliver as per your 3D printing. But it is all still India, it is this thing, 3D printing. And then coming to the packaging, we talk about the food packaging. The food packaging, we do functions, protection, preservation and presentation. And then containment also. Then one of the best, nature is given the best packaging. Your coconut, your banana, your orange, everything is given natural. The tender coconut is the best solution. As long as it is inside the water, it is a sterile. You can directly inject in your body if you have a degradation problem. The moment you open the coconut and then you take out the water, it undergoes lot of enzymatic changes and other things. So that's why the coconut is, tender coconut is very, very sterile. Wherever the facilities are there, you can directly inject also. And then the packaging also does the communication. Most of us, when we go and buy any food products, we see the labeling. So the labeling is function as a marketing sales guy here. Then convenience, most of us now we started using the convenience. Nobody imagined that milk will come in the sachets, in HDP pouches. Nobody imagined. Even earlier, oil, your edible oil, we used to go with a can and then used to purchase the edible oil. Now it is coming in the PET bottles, in the HDP jerry cans, and then these things also. So there are a lot of technology advancement is happening in the this thing. Convenience is also coming. And then I was talking about the traceability. This is the barcode, 13-digit barcode, the origin of the country, the date of manufacture, what is the shelf life, everything the barcode will tell about these things, the traceability. And then marketing. You can go for multiple, what you call, marketing strategies. And then tamper indication, particularly in the field of food safety, tamper evidence is very, very important. People should not tamper and then put some toxic material, then again supply into the supply chain management. If the jawan is consuming, it is contaminated with some toxins, the whole, what you call, the regiment or the troops will be getting affected, particularly in the water and other things. So the tamper evidence, tamper indication is very, very critical here. And then this is the future of the food processing industries. You have a lot of scopes actually. This and all, and then we are working on the space food, that is the Gaganyaan program also. When talking about the space food, what food we consume, the water, the way I drink in the, from the Bisleri water, you cannot drink in the microgravity environment. You cannot eat as you feel like that. If you see the different YouTube videos, you can see. So this is what the food is important for the life support systems. Now, if you are reading the media and these things, the International Space Station, the life is also going to get over. So you need to these things. So what are the critical issues in the space environment? One is the microgravity or the zero gravity. Microgravity is nothing but, suppose you are weighing a 1 kg in this atmosphere. Suppose you go to microgravity around 320 kilometer and above orbit, your weight will be multiplied by 5 to 6 times. Your 50 kg weight will be multiplied by 5 times or 6 times, and then you will be floating. And then entire your blood to your brain, it will be circulated in a different way. So the blood will go to your bottom, and then the water fluid will be, you will have imbalances. And then pressure difference, that vacuum pressure difference, it goes to 10 power minus 5 like that. And then unknown environment, your environment, micro environment or the space environment is an unknown environment. And then air temperature fluctuations, physical stress, and then psychological stress. And then say changed physiology of eating, chewing, drinking and swallowing solid and liquid products, and then altered digestion and metabolism. You cannot feel what you are having here, and then day and night shifts. For even now the proposed Gaganyaan, this thing, the astronauts, they will feel at least 16 times the day and night. Day and night they will be, because when they are orbiting in the earth, they will be seeing 16 to 12, 16 times these things. And then here, limitation in the weight and volume. Suppose I want to send the food products for the 10 astronauts, I cannot send some 1/10 some material, because the volume and the weight plays an important role. And then limited storage space. It is called budgeting of your requirements. Suppose we have a crew module, I will come to that slide. And then special procedures for the preparation, packaging, consumer. Then how to dispose your waste in the space environment, how to eat like that. So these are the some of these things. Weight loss, the major problem, weight loss happens, the bone density will undergo, and dehydration, constipation, electrolyte imbalance, potassium loss. We talk about the potassium loss, and then decreased red blood, RBC cell will decrease, and then like a typical space motion sickness. So there are different, what you call, these things happens, lipid casting, peroxidase, these and all these things, and then vitamin A, C, all those things. So antioxidants can decrease this kind of damage, these things. So when we are designing any food product for the astronauts or the space people, around 1.72 kg of food products per day. This is as per the NASA specification. And then you should have a vitamin D, and then carbohydrate rich products like that. And then balanced sodium and potassium for maintaining the body fluid balance, and then blood pressure also. So what are the requirements for the space food? You should have a well packed, easily digestible, convenience, easy storage, and then space disposal, and then lightweight, and then balanced nutrition, both micro and macronutrient loss. And then what are the challenges here? Already we told here. Then again, one more requirement, longer shelf life. For example, now the Indian Gaganyaan program happens, we call it as G1, G2 and H1 mission. G1 is nothing but the first unmanned mission, G2 is a second unmanned mission, and H1 is the manned mission. We need to load this material 3 months in advance in your crew module or your launch vehicle, whether it goes from the Satish Dhawan Space Center or anywhere. You need to load at least 3 months in advance to get a better these things, launch facilities. So I cannot load the fresh fruits and vegetables into the along with the material. So the minimum requirement is 9 months of your shelf life. Then additive free. You cannot add any chemical additives, even salt, sugar, everything is controlled, and reheating and waste sterilization mechanism, reusable pouches, and then packaging compatible with the trash compactors, and then weight allowed for food is very, very limited. So basically there are different types of food materials we normally develop for these space missions. One is a regurgitable, whether it is vacuum used or freeze dried, just to add water and these things, and intermediate moisture or irradiator or thermostabilized. Now throughout the world, people, we use only the thermal retard processed foods because it is chemically free, and then natural form foods like bars, nuts, like your cashew nut, almond, other things, and then fresh foods. Fresh foods for the short duration mission, it is very difficult, but people are now sending the cargo. I use the word cargo because now the materials are going and unloaded in the International Space Stations. So here you can read, food cannot be replaced by pills. like your medical pill, considering the psychological experience of eating. The human being need to have a satiety. Whenever we are consuming any product, he should have a fullness. Otherwise, he will not feel that as though he has taken. You just try the whole day. If you are taking only chocolates or some kind of biscuits, you will not feel that you have taken the food as such. So you need to take rice or chapati or anything. Then only you will get a fullness. That is what food cannot be these things. This is what in Mercury 1963 this thing happened. This and all available in this thing, and then Gemini, and then Apollo, and then this is the thermostabilized canned food. Here you can see here. This is a canned foods. This is ECA open-end cans. This is the aluminum can, and this is crucible drink containers. You can consume these things. And this is the Apollo era. Here, it is a paste kind of thing, toothpaste kind of things. You make a pasty kind of things, fill in this aluminum tube, and then put these things. And then this is the material of these things. And this is for Skylab. And this is the photos are not visible because of the too much of light here. And then space shuttle programs here. And then we are talking about the International Space Station here, ISS. One is the giant environment for these things here. And then even the drinking water, there is a specification. I will come to that point like these things. And then this is what DFL we have done. If you are aware or remember, I don't know, most of you may not born also that period, 1984, when Rakesh Sharma went for space with NASA and the erstwhile USSR, Soviet Russia, the food products was taken from DFR Mysore. So these are the food products taken those days. Here Mysore lab we have done here. So the lightweight, loco, these things, all those things. Because why the government of India has chosen the DRDO for space program is, we have the expertise in these kind of things. NASA chosen 13 out of our food baskets. I will come to these things. So these are some of the products we have screened earlier. One is a pineapple juice powder, mango juice powder, Mozambique, grapes, pomegranate, these things. And then this and all earlier it was dehydrated, freeze-dried products, chicken masala, mutton masala, all those things. And then these things. So this is what we sent in 1984 to the this thing, Rakesh Sharma. Still Rakesh Sharma is alive. He is living in Bangalore. 86 or 87-year-old these things. So the food products are like put in these pouches, and then you have to inject water in the needle. So you can go for the reconstitution, that is you can mix with the hot water or cold water depending upon the requirements. So this is how these things. And now coming to the present Gaganyaan mission, or the proposed manned mission announced by the government of India, and there are a lot of challenges happening here. So this is approximately the crew module will be like this, the container, these things. Okay, this is it will go this thing, the total mass is around 7 tons, 7,000 kg. So this is the crew module, and then we have the service module here, and then we have the orbital module. It will take the GSLV Mark III, the cryogenic engine or whatever the engine, it will take here, though it will be separated in the orbit. So these are some of the details. The manufacturer or the developer is the HAL and ISRO, and then the life is for the 7 days. I told around 7 tons, but it goes into this thing because now the weight is they are working on that, and then the dry mass is 3.7 and crew capacity is 3. The initial plan is for the 7 days or the 10 days with the 3 crew members. Already 4 astronauts they are undergoing the training at Bangalore. These things. This for the 320-kilometer orbit, and then it will be come back. So the launch and the what you call ascent and descent, everything now they are planning when these things. Now these dates, everything is completely changed. These dates, everything is completely changed because of the COVID scenario. So please don't take these dates actually. Now it is getting postponed here. So if you see the Gaganyaan typical mission, the launch will take place, and then this is the what you call descent, not this thing, orbital molecule separation takes place, and then it go for the entry, and then it will rotate or the travel in the 7 days in the orbit. But now 7 days is also doubtful. It may be at 3 days or 4 days. This orbital, how it will separate, that is called the solar array deployment. If you have studied, anybody studied this space, this thing, solar array plays an important, and then it goes for the reorientation. The last week, the ISRO launched that PSLV with a separate this thing. It is available on the YouTube. You people can see that. And then crew module and the service module separation happens. And then the crew module will come to re-entry. That is, see, up to here the launch is very easy. Lift off and up to orbital module, because India is having the capability. India is having the capability up to go here. But once to recover back is very, very critical. Then aerobaking will happen, and then parachute deployment takes place. Parachute deployment, because one of the DRDO, I will explain what with these things. Through parachute these things, and then it will be recovered. So we are aiming for the water recovery. It will be landed in the sea, either in Gujarat or near other places. It will be recovered, splash down recovery will happen, and then it will be crew module recovery will happen here. So this is the Gaganyaan program, the cabin values. So these are the, what you call, the components will be there. I forgot about spaceports. I will start with here, what you call health monitoring system, 24/7. The crew module will be monitored health conditions like BP, his SpO2, heart rate, everything, and then fire suppression, and then sensors will be there to control these kind of things, and then emergency survival kit, medicine, our things will be there, and then of course spaceport will be there, and then potable water, circulation system, personal hygiene, all his personal hygiene, everything will be there, and then these are the things, and then you have to maintain this cabin pressure also like this. So this already I think I have told here. Only my request, this slides, please delete it, don't keep in the system here. So in this Gaganyaan program, around 10 labs we are working in the Gaganyaan program. One, I'll start with the Defense Laboratory Jodhpur. They are giving the passive dosimeter, because whenever we are going into the orbit, there will be a lot of radiation. So to measure the radiation on the astronauts, we are providing the what you call passive dosimeter to see the dosimeters. And then this is the INMAS, Institute of Nuclear Medicine Allied Science. They are providing the what you call some personal emergency kits like tablets, injection, because normally that astronauts will have the space motion sickness. So he has to take some injections, and then he has to consume some medicines. So we are providing some medicines and everything. And that double, this is a Defense Biology Bangalore lab. They are providing the smart vest, where that his health condition will be monitored regularly. SpO2, BP, heart rate, everything will be monitored 24/7 with algorithms, and all these things will be controlled from the ground also. And then DFR, of course, we are providing the food materials, and DPAS, they are providing the earmuff to see the communication. CIFIS, that is the Center for Fire Explosive Safety, they are providing the fire suppression system, portable. This lab is the very, very critical. They are providing the parachutes. The parachutes will be provided by this lab, Agra lab. Once the crew module comes to re-entry, the parachutes will be opened, and then they will be recovered, and then they will be put into the Arabian Sea, or depending upon the orbit rotation. And the TBRL is providing some kind of ammunition to activate the parachutes. Then CEMILAC is for the certification body. Please remember, this Gaganyaan program is a very, very stringent exercise. Even full stop comma they check in the document. So very, very strict these things. We will be providing around 2,800 to 3,600 kilocalorie. Based on the calorific value, or the requirements are calculated based on his age, height, weight, and then that is called body mass index, BMI we calculate, and so we arrived at these things. So the water will be providing 2 liters per day to him, only for the drinking purpose, and then these are some of the requirements we are meeting. And then these are typically we follow the NASA specifications, NASA 301 2015, now the NASA CFX 300 also now it has come into the picture. So it is all how the very stringent microbial quality. And then the innovation in the space, now they are going to these things, 3D printing, and then 3D printing Maggie, it is happening, how you can see here. And now people started cultivating the space environment also. In the International Space Station, capsicum, some kind of material, now they started cultivating in the space environment and all, but it is all challenging. Maybe some kind of attempt they are making, but how far it will be successful to completely provide the complete largest requirements for this International Space Station is a question mark. So the International Space Station, you will have this is called dinner tray. This is called dinner tray. You have the salads and you have the main course, and then you have the vegetables, and then you have some kind of other process, these things, dessert. Then see, even we are providing the spoon and the scissors. Even the spoon which is going to use for cutting open the pouches, that also it should be meeting the SS3006 specification. How much alloy, what is the composition, there should not be any corrosion. There are strict things are there in the space programs. So because the life of the individual is more important than your the system. You can go for this thing. So Air Force fighter pilots, 4 people, they are working on these things. Already they've underwent 1.5 year training, 3 semester training at Russia, Moscow, and now they are undergoing training at Bangalore. So their life is more critical. That's why the quality stringent requirements are very, very important. Then apart from that, this is the DFR aspects. And then we also provide lot of disaster management during any kind of natural calamities, starting from the Maharashtra earthquake. Since we come under Ministry of Defense, Government of India, we immediately within 24 to 48 hours, we provide the relief operations. Orissa super cyclone, more than 10,000 people killed. I was there for more than 15 days to see this operation. That time, no your mobile phone, nothing. We used to speak with our Dr. Abdul Kalam through satellite phone. Per day, each lab is given 2 minutes slot. So we used to speak him. So we used to airdrop the food materials. 98 to 99, that is called Operation Sagayita. Complete Balasore, Bhadrak, everything was completely marooned. And then Gujarat earthquake, all of us aware, and of course tsunami also. Tsunami also DFL played, and Leh, Uttarakhand, these things, Kerala, Karnataka floods also. So any kind of natural disaster happens, DFL used to provide the relief operations. And then during the COVID also, we have provided different what you call ready-to-eat products, and then this hand sanitizer. First time in India country, like this mask and hand sanitizer become very, very a new word in the country, because nobody aware that hand sanitizer will be that much costly. The N95 mask, when we started purchasing, it was around 365 rupees. Now it is coming for 40 rupees, 50 rupees. So you can imagine how the things changes based on the demand and the requirement. Hand sanitizer we provided as per the WHO standard. And then of course DRDO, we have established around 8 to 10 hospitals in the country during the COVID. I want to tell that during the COVID, maybe a 2 year, DRDO labs, yes, even a single minute we are not closed. Even a single minute our DRDO labs, whether it is a Mysore or Bangalore or Delhi, 56 labs, even a single minute we are not closed, because we are working throughout the, this thing, what you call, during the COVID period. So during that period, we have established around 10 hospitals in country, starting with the Delhi, that is completely managed by the Delhi. If you are aware, the Delhi location, we established hospital near command area, that is the RR hospital backside. If you go to airport, Aerocity backside, we established around 2,000 bed capacity with 500 ICU units also. Then subsequently this COVID hospital was established in Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad, and then in UP, Lucknow, and then even in Arunachal Pradesh. Like that we have established, DRDO established hospitals, and then we provided these kind of materials. And of course we have developed a mobile laboratory also, that is called to test the microbiological quality of your food and water, that we developed for under some program. So this mobile lab is having the facility to test your COVID, like RT-PCR, and then you have the BSL, it is a BSL-2 facility only. So we provided to this Mysore Medical College. So by using our lab, they have tested around 2,000 cases per day during the first wave actually. And then based on this mobile lab, now Government of India, that through that Gates Foundation and then the Prime Minister Care Fund, we have fabricated 2 these mobile labs by the vendor, and then one we given to IIT Chennai and another on IIT Guwahati. So this van now it is going to be used for COVID test in the future things. So thank you very much.